Hello everyone. As you already seen in the title of this video, I'm gonna talk about what I've learned about the experience of living in Australia, but particularly my experience of living in an office in Australia. So I will begin this story by telling you a little bit of context about myself. So I arrived to Perth in late 2022 and I went there as a young international student looking for a citizenship. Because let's be real, most of the international students that Australia get are people who wanna improve their life and stay in the country. Being honest with you guys, my life was already good back in my country. I was working in a remote job which was paying really well. I was going to my gym, and the gym had sauna, spa. So I was just want to tell you I was living a comfortable life. And of course, all my family was there in my country, my friends, and I even had a girlfriend, right? So you could say my life was complete. But what made me go to Australia was me looking for an adventure, me looking to improve my life, and again, getting a citizenship, right? So, well, I spent a lot of money going there, paying for the college fees, But I ended going there again, late 2022. And at the beginning was a pretty nice experience. I was meeting a lot of people. It was a completely new environment. All my senses were captivated with this new world, right? However, what many people know that one of the most complicated problems that Australia has right now is with their accommodation. Paying the rent in Australia, it's crazy. And just to give you an idea and a little perspective of what I was living, just in 3 years, my rent doubled, pretty much. So when I arrived there, I was staying in a place only for students, and I was paying around $180 per week, Australian dollars, of course. And again, just in 3 years, it went from 180 to 350 or 360, which again is a lot of money considering I didn't even own or have my own room. I was sharing a room with 3 other people. So imagine paying $360 sharing, well, not even having your own room, sharing a room with 3 other people. Again, at the beginning it was nice because you arrive to a new country and you are completely alone, and this forces you to meet people, right? However, after some time, you kind of get tired of it. In any case, accommodation everywhere was pretty crazy back then when I left. And I'm talking about 2025. So I had to find a way to stay in Australia, right? Without me wasting all my money on rent. For a while, I was living in a friend's house. However, well, for around 1 year, so it was considerable amount of time. However, my friend told me, man, I'm gonna need the room that you have because a family member of mine is gonna come here to Australia and he's gonna need the room. So that's when I needed to find a different place. And of course, this was 3 years after I arrived, so this was 2025. The rent was crazy and I was not able to find something, affordable or close to my work. Both of my jobs were pretty much in the city. So the places that I was looking that were not affordable, but the places that I could pay for were like 1 hour and a half or even 2 hours away from my job. So that was honestly too much for me. And I was just disencouraged by the whole experience, because after 2 years of being in Australia, I was able to finally find a stable income. So I'm telling you this because, yeah, I was in Australia for 3 years, but it took me 2 years to find a stable income. So after finding my stable income, then I have to face the challenge of having to move out, right? Long story short, I wasn't able to find anything. And when I was, completely disencouraged and thinking this might be the time where I can start packing up, you know, I saw an ad where they were mentioning a office where you could rent, and the price was insanely good. Of course, they were not expecting anybody to live there, and that was the price was so low. But in my mind came an idea, and it came an idea with a lot of energy, saying, you know what, I'm gonna give Australia this final push. I'm gonna go all in, and I'm gonna make it work. Me living in an office. So of course, as you can imagine, there were many complicated aspects about living in an office. First of all, the people that you are surrounded with, they are all people that dedicate themselves to their job. That's why they needed an office, of course. And I pretty much, they were, in my case, they were all lawyers and some doctors here and there that they needed an office space. So I was the only one who was not related to those kind of positions, but I had to pretend that I was related in order just to fit in, right? And at the beginning, my whole strategy was to talking nicely to everyone because I'm very sociable. However, being sociable ended up being counterproductive because everybody started asking complicated questions, right? Like, hey, why do you get so late to the office? Why do you go so early? Na 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 na. So my strategy completely changed when I was living there. I became a complete introvert and I was just saying, hey, hello, good morning, na 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 na. And in that way, I was avoiding all the questions. So now that I gave you like a little context of how I ended up living in an office in Australia, I'm gonna tell you the facts of what I learned. First of all, that you become way more confident about yourself when you put yourself in these type of situations, because you are kind of exploring the limits of your abilities. And in this case, it was my abilities on surviving and thriving in a whole different country. It was already challenging for me being a non-native speaker living in Australia, right? However, I think this was the most complicated challenge I had while living in Australia, because I was working 2 full-time jobs while I was studying, and I was also living in an office. So in the end, to be honest, this pushed me out of Australia, but that's the second thing I want to share with you guys. So first of all, yeah, this type of situations give you a lot of confidence in you and your life, but also you learn what are your limits. And in my case, I found that not having an inner circle, right? Not having something to push me forward pretty much was the end of me in Australia, because even though I was living a, you could say, productive life, all the time generating money and all the time working, even though I was doing that, it was a very lonely existence, because The people that surrounded me were friendly. However, they were not my friends. They were not people I wanted to see after work. They were mostly people or co-workers, friendly co-workers, but that was it, you know? So I had absolutely no inner circle where I could say, you know what, I'm happy living here. As a matter of fact, that was my last year in Australia because, man, it was just me surviving in an office and I didn't see the point of why I was doing what I was doing. So pretty much that ended my stay. And I believe this is also like not a warning, but the reality of, facing challenges. Whenever you are aspiring to get your dream come true, you will always face challenges and you will always face discomfort. Maybe I'm not the best one to tell you about this because in the end, I realized I didn't want to continue doing what I was doing. But again, there is no way for you to achieve your goal without going to, in this case, um, suffering or, discomfort. However, there has to be, and I realize, something that pushes you over, something that gives you purpose more than money, because if not, it just becomes, empty. And I felt when I left Australia, I left just in the right moment. Because right now, unfortunately, the rent crisis is even bigger because the war is forcing the Reserve Bank to raise the interest rates. And pretty much this hits renters in many ways, right? But there is a greater pressure on them. And the fuel and transport is getting pretty crazy, which of course makes the supply chain go to a crisis. So there are fewer homes and the construction is paralyzed. Again, this is not me criticizing the country. Actually, very grateful for the experience that I had and for them having me 3 years. But yeah, this is a warning, man. Australia is kind of crazy now. The whole world is kind of crazy now. But if you are a little bit crazy too, and you still have the strength to face the challenges that this, like a place like Australia, can face to you, then go for it, man. I don't regret any moment I spent in Australia, but I'm happy also that I left. And pretty much this is what I learned about living in an office in Australia for, it was around 6 months.